Hello everyone, Dr. Alex Vasquez here with a quick review of the recently published article, Supplemental Vitamins and Minerals for Cardiovascular Disease Prevention and Treatment. This was published in the June 2018 issue of the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. For this very quick presentation, I'm going to discuss the following contents. That is, the context of this article, the article's details and design, errors in this article, exemplification in which I will provide several real-world examples that demonstrate the errors within this article, also how to improve this line of research. This video will be produced in two versions, the shorter of which you are currently viewing. The longer version will be available through various channels, including my Facebook page, Inflammation Mastery, which is basically updated daily with news and videos, also my video archive on Vimeo, which is Dr. Vasquez, and thirdly, the ichnfm.org website /18. This is the 2018 archive of free videos and PDF transcripts. The goal of this second or shorter version of this video is to emphasize the significance of one of the errors in this published article. Other sections will be covered quickly herein. Viewers can pause the video to read the slides and/or see the longer version for more details. Now I will start with part one, which is the context, specifically Journal of the American College of Cardiology, which was recently discussed in a 2017 review published in the British Medical Journal. Title of this article, as you can see, is Payments by U.S. Pharmaceutical and Medical Device Manufacturers to U.S. Medical Journal Editors. What was noted in this research is that the editors of the Journal of the American College of Cardiology receive an abundance of extra money from the U.S. pharmaceutical industry. And as you can see here from a related article, quote, worst on the list is Journal of the American College of Cardiology, where 19 of its editors received, on average, nearly $500,000 personally, and another $120,000 for quote-unquote research. Number two, let's take a look at the article itself and comment on the design. This is published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, 2018, June. This is a meta-analysis regarding cardiovascular disease outcomes and all-cause mortality associated with the use of supplemental vitamins and minerals. Findings reported in this article are conclusive evidence for the benefit of any supplement across all dietary backgrounds, including deficiency and sufficiency, was not demonstrated. Therefore, any benefits seen must be balanced against the possible, or in this case, proposed and hypothesized risk of nutritional supplementation. Some of the notably ridiculous statements in this article, among many contenders, include supplement differences might have influenced outcomes. I actually consider that to be a ridiculous statement because, of course, supplement differences would influence outcomes. They also noted that adherence to and persistence with supplement use was an issue with regard to the quality of the research. What that means is, in this case, they did not have data on which subjects in this research adhered or persisted with supplement use. Furthermore, they note dose response data was generally not available. So what that means in terms of the quality of the research that they're reviewing is that the quality of the research was of very low quality, and that therefore any conclusions that they make are going to be suspect with regard to reliability. Another very questionable statement in this research publication is, quote, finally, combining different types of antioxidants might be suboptimal because their mechanisms of action might also be different. So that's basically an absurd statement that really doesn't have any meaning. So combining different types of antioxidants might be suboptimal. That doesn't make really any sense from a nutritional or medical or pharmacologic standpoint. In fact, antioxidants generally work synergistically together, so the suggestion that combinations might be suboptimal, that requires substantiation. If they're going to state that in a research publication, they need to substantiate that, because actually the opposite is true, because the benefits actually become additive and synergistic. So basically what they're using here is a political tactic known as inserting doubt, and that is they're trying to make the entire field of nutritional science and nutritional supplementation, they're trying to make the whole field look questionable by inserting unnecessary doubt. This statement is, first of all, meaningless and therefore unnecessary, but it does serve the purpose of making nutritional supplementation and nutritional science look bogus or questionable or unsure and therefore worthy of avoidance. The second part of this sentence is because their mechanisms of action might be different. Well, Sure, of course. Different nutrients function in different manners. Of course, their mechanisms of actions are going to be different. So, again, this statement really doesn't make any sense and it really doesn't belong in a top tier medical journal. And the fifth ridiculous statement that I pulled out from this article is, quote, nevertheless, when studies containing selenium were removed from the meta-analysis, the significance level favoring control increased. So basically what they did is they established certain criteria by which they would include certain studies. Then they reviewed those studies. Then when they saw that selenium actually provided benefit, they removed those selenium studies from their meta-analysis because they showed benefit. That's exactly what's being stated here. When studies containing selenium were removed from the meta-analysis, the significance level favoring control increased. I'll talk more about that later in this quick review. So basically, this is a top-tier medical journal and a medical society publishing ridiculous research. When you read garbage research like this, especially when written by nearly 40 authors and published by a major medical society, what you need to realize is that, number one, this data is horribly biased, and number two, gross deviations from logic and scientific method are becoming commonplace in the medical research as a reflection of lower social, ethical, intellectual standards and expectations. Let's look at some more problems with this research on this page. Number one, problematic bias of the journal. Number two, problematic bias of the editors. Number three, problematic bias of the authors, notably funded by the drug industry and the processed food industry, as you can see in the table below. Problem number four that I noticed is the unscientific exclusion of data, and that is the failure to include non-English research. What was stated in the article is that non-English research was intentionally excluded from this meta-analysis, and my contention, which I state very strongly here, is that that has no scientific basis. So this article had nearly 40 authors and was funded by several multinational, multi-million, and multi-billion-dollar industries. You can be quite sure that they had the manpower and financial resources to look at data that was published in a language other than English. So the fact that they intentionally ignored that data has nothing to do with the language. What it has to do with is the fact that they didn't want to include that data in their meta-analysis, even though that data may have actually been quite important. Problem number five mentioned here, they are intentionally excluding data that counters their predetermined narrative. Data on selenium was excluded from the analysis because that data was actually favorable, showing that nutritional supplementation provided benefit. The authors state, and I quote, studies containing selenium were removed from the meta-analysis of antioxidants due to the high percentage of these studies on the left side of the unity line versus the right side of the unity line in the antioxidant forest plot. This is compared with other components of antioxidant mixtures. Removal of the selenium studies resulted in a significant increase in all-cause mortality. I don't see any logic whatsoever in that statement. So removing certain studies simply because they show benefit within the context of a literature review and meta-analysis is contrary to the very nature of a literature review and meta-analysis. Point number 6 that I make here is failure to maintain any clinical or pharmacologic standard. So basically the data that was reviewed did not allow sufficient assessment for adherence or compliance with treatment, nor for dose-response relationships. And the third point within that category is that they use different types of supplementation. So basically they have no quality data here, and yet their stated conclusion is that vitamin and mineral supplementation provides no benefit with regard to cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. Basically, they have no idea what they're looking at because, number one, they didn't assess for adherence. Number two, they have no dose-response relationship information. And number three, they used many different products, but they didn't standardize in any way whatsoever the quality or quantity of the nutrients within those products. As such, their final conclusion is completely invalidated. And that point actually deserves its own emphasis, which I provide here. I call this nutritional pseudo-equivocation. Basically, they're saying that all vitamin and mineral supplementations provide no value for cardiovascular disease prevention and with regard to all-cause mortality, and that is simply illogical when they don't have the data to support that claim. So what I'm going to do in the following pages is actually show you some different products and show you the differences in those ingredients in terms of quality and quantity and also diversity, and show you why that makes real-world differences. So let's start this section, which I'm titling here, How to Read and Differentiate a Multivitamin and Mineral Supplement Label. As I've taught my students for many years, the only way to understand nutrition is to understand each nutrient and each of its main characteristics in terms of sources, digestion, assimilation, distribution, storage, and excretion, metabolism and biochemistry, also dosages, which differ for pediatrics, pregnancy, adults, elderly, and patients with specific disease considerations, especially including renal and hepatic insufficiency. We also have to be aware of nutrient interactions, synergy and antagonism, drug and disease interactions, and also then clinical applications, durations, and reasonable expectations. So now let's look at some different product labels and see if we can tell the difference between high quality and low quality products. So we notice, for example, that with this product, it contains vitamin A and beta carotene. The problem with supplementing with beta carotene is that blocks the absorption of other carotenoids. Vitamin D here was provided in the form of vitamin D2, which is generally considered to be ineffective, as vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, is the appropriate human nutrient. Furthermore, the dose is completely inadequate at 400 international units. That is not an adequate dose for an infant, let alone for an adult. The common dose for adults these days is 4,000 to 10,000 international units per day, so this supplement provides less than 10% of what would be adequate if it was provided in the proper form, which it is not. Vitamin D2 is considered to be about 30 to 50% as effective as vitamin D3. Vitamin E here is in the synthetic form of DL-alpha tocopherol acetate. Vitamin E is actually a family of different compounds and should at least include mixed tocopherols with an emphasis on gamma tocopherol. As with the carotenoids, as I mentioned previously, supplementation with one tocopherol may block absorption of the other tocopherols, and that's why we need to use a balanced or mixed tocopherol blend. The dose of vitamin B6 in this case is completely inadequate, and it's also in the form of pyridoxine hydrochloride. That's an inactive form of vitamin B6. Vitamin B6, when it's in the pyridoxine hydrochloride form, has to get converted into pyridoxal 5-phosphate, and that of course requires magnesium. It also has an intermediary step that requires riboflavin. The dose here is far too low at 3 milligrams. Folic acid here was provided at 400 micrograms. Folic acid is basically obsolete these days. Most nutrition companies use methylfolate or folinic acid. Folic acid famously worsens cerebral folate deficiency. Vitamin B12 was provided here in the form of cyanocobalamin, which obviously contains cyanide, which is a poison, especially for smokers and patients with renal insufficiency. This product claims to contain 30 milligrams of biotin. I consider that highly unlikely. Biotin tends to be one of the more expensive nutrients. The idea that they would put 30 milligrams in this multivitamin is unlikely to the point of being illogical, and I think that this product is mislabeled. Such a dose of biotin is pretty unlikely and would be remarkably expensive. Most of the minerals here are provided in their cheapest and worst forms in terms of absorption, and they are all subtherapeutically dosed. Now let's take a look at another product. Basically, this product provides vitamins and minerals in their worst and cheapest forms, and provides also incomplete descriptions on the label. You'll also notice that it has artificial colors, which are completely unnecessary. I don't think anybody really cares what color their vitamin pill is, but in this case, the two colorants that are used are both azo dyes associated with numerous health problems in humans, most notably the yellow dye number 6, which is known to exacerbate asthma and hyperactivity in children. Let's look at another product here. This comes from Bayer Healthcare, so-called Consumer Care. This is one-a-day men's, so-called men's health formula. Again, the vitamin D dose is far too low for an adult. Vitamin D3 is the proper human nutrient, but 700 international units is an inadequate dose for an infant, let alone an adult. So again, the appropriate dose for adults these days starts at about 4,000 international units and goes as high as 10,000 international units, especially for obese patients. Again, vitamin E is a family of different compounds and should at least include mixed and gamma tocopherols. The dose here is too low. They used here again pyridoxine hydrochloride, and that's okay, but this dose is far too low. The dose that was used here was only 3 milligrams as previously. Folic acid is obsolete, as I mentioned previously. Most nutrition companies use methylfolate or folinic acid, and again, folic acid famously worsens cerebral folate deficiency. Vitamin B12 was again provided here in the form of cyanocobalamin, which contains cyanide, which is a mitochondrial poison. This is especially problematic for smokers and patients with renal insufficiency. Again, here they use the cheapest and worst forms of minerals, all of which are subtherapeutically dosed, but at least this product is better than the one reviewed previously. Moving on, let's look at another product. This is a multivitamin multimineral called Pro Multi Plus from Biotics Research. We see that it provides vitamin A and contains a mixture of carotenoids. We also see that it provides vitamin D in the form of vitamin D3 at 2,000 international units. It also contains mixed tocopherols, and it also contains folate in the form of calcium folinate. Vitamin B12 here is provided in the form of hydroxycobalamin. You'll also notice that the dose is quite a bit higher than the previous examples. In this case, both folic acid and hydroxycobalamin are provided at 1,000 micrograms. So generally what you're looking at here is vitamins in higher doses and also in their active forms. Not only does this form of B12 not contain cyanide, but it actually binds to and removes cyanide and is used in hospital emergency treatment of cyanide poisoning. So again, this form of vitamin B12 called hydroxycobalamin actually binds onto cyanide and helps remove it from the body. You'll also notice that the minerals are in higher doses and also in more absorbable forms. Let's look at another ingredient list here. This product is called Vasculocert, also from Biotics Research. Vitamin D is provided as vitamin D3 cholecalciferol at 2,000 international units per day. Now notice the difference here with vitamin K. So the vitamin K here is being provided in a form called vitamin K2, also occasionally called vitamin K7, which has been shown to have specific cardiovascular disease preventive benefits. We've got calcium folinate and methylcobalamin this time. And then toward the bottom, we notice coenzyme Q10, resveratrol, lipoic acid, and acetylcarnitine. Now, for those of you who understand nutrition, when you see coenzyme Q10, resveratrol, lipoic acid, and acetylcarnitine together, you should know what's being targeted there. And the significance of this is that what we're looking at here is called nutritional synergism. These nutrients work together, coenzyme Q10, resveratrol, lipoic acid, and acetylcarnitine, to improve mitochondrial function, which is very important for cardiovascular disease treatment and prevention. Also, you notice that this formulation provides many phytochemicals, again in an antioxidant blend, which should provide additional benefit. So now let's compare this ingredient list with the one that we looked at previously in the first example. Nobody who knows anything about nutrition would think that these two products would be capable of providing the same outcome. These products are clearly distinct, even though they are both under the title of vitamin and mineral supplements. But these are radically different formulas with different quantities, qualities, and combinations of nutrients. These are not going to provide the same outcome. So now I will conclude with a quick review on how to improve nutritional and medical research, such as the study that we're analyzing here. One is we can micromanage these problems. Number two, we can teach doctors to be nutritionally competent so that when they read research, they hold that research to a higher level of intellectual and scientific competence so that junk research like this doesn't get published in the first place. For doctors who want to learn about nutrition, I typically recommend Alan Gaby's book, Nutritional Medicine, which is now in its 2nd edition, combined with my book, Inflammation Mastery, which is now in its 4th edition. Furthermore, we need to teach ethics, and we also need to teach active literacies so that people will recognize and combat bogus research such as this. Finally, my conclusion and summary page is provided here. My main concerns are the problematic biases of this journal, the problematic bias of the editors, the problematic bias of the authors who were funded by the drug and processed food industries, the unscientific exclusion of data, especially the failure to include non-English research when they certainly had the resources to translate and include that research. Also, number 5, the intentional exclusion of data that counters what appears to have been their predetermined narrative. Also, finally, number 6 here, nutritional pseudo-equivocation. That is, discussing all vitamin and mineral supplements together as if they were equal when clearly they are not, and I showed you some very good examples of how to read a nutritional label so that you can tell the difference between a high-quality product and a low-quality product. and, as I state here, haphazardly lumping all nutritional supplements together without due regard for quality, quantity, and synergy of those nutrients is intellectually incompetent and scientifically irresponsible. I also talked about some ways to improve this line of research. So thank you very much for your quick attention. The longer version of this video will be posted on my various channels. And again, this has been Dr. Alex Vasquez with a very quick review of this recent article, Supplemental Vitamins and Minerals for Cardiovascular Disease Prevention and Treatment, published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, June 2018.